back to another episode of Millie's Baseside Chats, where we are live streaming to bring some calm to the chaos of your PCS. Every week, we bring in duty station experts and subject matter experts on all the things that can be affecting you and your military life, and we want to try to help shine a light on the resources that are out there available for you in order for you to thrive. So, my name is Kelly. I'll be your host today. I want to say thanks for joining us again this week. We are super excited to be continuing out this series. Today, we're going to be talking all about money. And yes, we've had this conversation a couple of times, but I cannot stress how important it is, especially if you are one of the lucky ones that are facing a PCS in the coming weeks, months, or anytime in the future, really. You know, it's going to happen. Go ahead and bank this conversation away because you're going to want to check into it later. Okay, so today we have an awesome expert from Military Saves. Her name is Lila Quintiliani. I've been practicing. I'll bring her on in just a second, you guys. But first, I want to just once more acknowledge our awesome sponsor for this series. We have been super proud and excited to partner with Boldly. They are a W-2 subscription staffing service, and they are actively recruiting military spouse talent. So if you are on the front end of your PCS thinking about what your employment situation might look like, or you're getting settled, we want you to be thinking about Boldly and keep their opportunities top of mind. More about them in a little bit. But for now, I want to go ahead and jump in and chat with Lila. So let's bring her on screen. Hey, Lila.
Hey.
How's it going?
It's going well.
Good. So Lila's joining us from the DC area. So if you guys are watching, you have any questions about DC or the Pentagon specifically, now's your chance. We will try to sprinkle in some nuggets as we go. But Lila, will you take just a quick second and introduce yourself to our Millie family and let us know maybe a little bit about your military affiliation and what your story has been so far?
Sure. I am an Army veteran, and I'm also an Army spouse. I have been for over 20 years, and we've moved about, I had to count it up 11 times, both CONUS and OCONUS. And we moved last year to the DC area. And I am also, on a personal note, I'm an accredited financial counselor, and I am the program manager for Military Saves, which is a nonprofit that tries to encourage service members and their families and veterans to save more and to reduce debt.
Yeah, I love that. As soon as the thought or the mention of Military Saves come up, I know you guys have a big month coming up, or is it now?
Yes.
Is it March or April?
It's April. It's the entire month of April is Military Saves Month.
Yep, I always see all of the awesome resources you guys push out for that, and we try to stay as engaged as possible because we know how fluctuating military family finances can seem to be, as personally experienced.
Exactly, and it's also sort of the kickoff of PCS season too. So there's all that going on, and the month of the military child and everything else. But yeah, it's a jam-packed season.
Yeah, no kidding. Okay, so if you guys are watching, I see a few eyeballs. Say hi in the comments. Don't troll, don't stalk. We want to know who's here. So say hey. Maybe drop in the comments where your duty station is currently, or if you're looking at a PCS, where you're headed to, and we'll try to give you a shout out. Hey, Jennifer, I see you. Okay, so let's jump right in. I think a lot of people, maybe if you're new to the military, I know for me personally, when we got our first couple of PCSs under our belt, I was like, oh, they'll pay for everything. I don't need to be prepared. I mean, surely there's a system in place that will help me from having to dig into my piggy bank and actually foot expenses. Can we talk about how that could probably not be the best way to approach?
Right. It depends, depending on where you're moving to, and where you're moving from, a PCS can be a really rude wake up call. We actually, and I considered myself like this super seasoned spouse and PCSer. And when we moved to Germany, when we were stationed in Germany, it was like I was a brand new spouse all over again. And I had no idea because it was our first ACONUS move since Germany was my first duty station as a soldier.
Wow.
So you didn't really, when you go with the flow. I didn't have a family. I wasn't married, and I just, I wasn't paying attention. I didn't realize how expensive things were. And then all of a sudden we had, 2 kids, and we were PCSing to Germany as, kind of mid-career. It was shocking. I mean, all the expenses that kind of hit at once.
Right.
And I kind of wished I had started saving earlier.
It's just, I think we get in and even me, like, I know that I am at risk of PCSing, like, at any point in time, right? You can't get comfortable, right?
No.
You almost have to just always have that fund available. But in my head, sometimes it's like, well, I'll get reimbursed for all this stuff anyway. So it's really tempting to just pull out a credit card and swipe away as you're going through. And then that stuff adds up so fast that I think a lot of people find themselves in trouble pretty quickly. What would you, I mean, I know we've kind of looked for some stats and data on this, but what do you think, how do you feel about what most people are spending kind of out of their own pocket or maybe upfront for a PCS move?
Well, I've read that people on average end up paying about $1,700 out of pocket per PCS, but I think that can be higher or lower depending on where you're going.
Yeah.
Anecdotally, I had lots of friends when we were in Germany who spent like $5,000 trying to ship their pets over, because it's very difficult to get, especially if you have larger pets or some of the snub-nosed dog breeds that can't, can only fly at certain times of the year. I had friends who spent thousands because we don't want to leave our furry friends behind. So, and those are definitely the kind of costs that can just kind of, bite you.
They really do. Yeah. And then you're stuck making decisions that, you're making under kind of stress and because of being unprepared. Yeah.
And the other thing I really saw a lot of people spend money was on either shipping an extra car, because generally you can only ship one car when you PCS, shipping another car out of pocket, which can cost, well over $1,000, or selling a car and then turning around and trying to buy another car right when you land. So that's something to keep in mind. Either you need to figure out a way to pay to ship an extra car, or do without an extra car, or buy a car as soon as you get in country. Yeah. So that was another thing where I saw people getting into lots of trouble. And we ourselves, I mean, we kind of wished that we had shipped our paid for car rather than try to get a car we got on the other side.
Well, yeah, and so because then you're going to sell it before you move back, and then you're just kind of throwing that money out. Right.
Yeah. And then of course you're also choosing, a lot of times you're choosing from the lemon lot, the so-called lemon lot, where people have kind of clunkers that they're getting rid of, and you're spending, you're buying them and, for a few $1,000s and then putting a few $1,000s worth of parts and tires and everything on them. So those are the two things that, especially moving CONUS to OCONUS and vice versa, that I saw people get into a lot of trouble. And we ourselves got into kind of a bit of trouble because we were forced to buy a car without, very suddenly.
So I typically find, especially in our kind of realm and world, a lot of it has to do with housing. So if you're renting a house, you're going to have to float deposits, right? Like you've got still waiting on maybe a refund. Maybe you're not guaranteed a deposit back, depending on how you treated the place you were renting before. But you're kind of floating in this kind of limbo. And a lot of people find themselves with restricted options and choices based on housing because of the fact that they've strung all this money out without really considering the timeline, right? Like you've got to be able to have first month's rent, but if you were living on base, you didn't have a deposit that you're going to get back, right? Or it could be any number of things, but those all factor and like limit your choices. Whereas if you have that padding, look, $1,700 is right around BAH, at least for North Carolina for some folks. So like that could be your deposit somewhere.
Right. But it could give you much more freedom to choose where you want to live. And especially because, like you said, you have the deposits on both ends, and depending on the areas, we actually just PCS'd from South Florida, which was super high cost of living. higher than DC. Our BAH was higher than DC down there, believe it
Wow.
or not.
I
And then we
believe
moved
it.
to another high BAH area. So imagine how much we had tied up in our deposit in South Florida. But before we could get that back, we had to put down a deposit in the highly competitive DC, rental market. So yeah, those are things. I mean, and you will get them back, and they went back into our emergency fund. But there were some months there where our emergency fund was slim.
Yeah. Yeah, and just also I think not considering the fact that things aren't going to go as planned, just always. There's Murphy, it's going to happen, right? Like maybe you're thinking, "Oh, I'm just going to go live on base." And then you get there and there's a 4-month waiting list, and you're what? Right? Are you going to live per diem somewhere? Is it going to be an approved place to live? I mean, there's so many things. Or, oh, I'm going to bring my dogs with me in the car and we'll stay at a hotel, but all the hotels in the city that you're in don't take dogs. It can be any number of things that all of these
Yeah.
unexpected. I'm trying to think of what else. What are some other kind of crazy unexpected expenses?
We have fun. My husband, he had rotator cuff surgery in May, and we moved in June, and he could not. His car is a stick shift, and I don't like to drive it. So when we moved up to DC, his arm was in a sling. His right arm, his shifting arm was in a sling. And we were going to drive both of our cars up, and suddenly we had to figure out a way to all fit in one car, the kids, the dog, and my husband, and then somehow come back later and get his car.
Wow.
So that was our unexpected wrench. And we looked at it a couple different ways. We were almost going to ship the car, but we couldn't find a shipper to ship it exactly in the timeline we needed. We ended up parking it somewhere before his surgery and paying for a one-way airline ticket for him to fly back and get it, because that ended up being the most creative and least expensive solution we could come up with. But yeah, that was like totally unexpected. We didn't find out he was getting surgery until 2 weeks before it happened, and it was right before we PCS'd. But yes, he couldn't help me move stuff. Poor guy was in a sling and in a lot of pain. And then, yeah.
I have a story like that. It has nothing to do with PCSing or money, but my husband had ankle surgery the day before Snowmageddon in DC back in 2015 or something. We got feet of snow. He's from New York, so he knows how to do snow, and I'm from South Carolina. I had no idea. Anyway, conveniently, had the surgery the day it started snowing. I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. So it's how it goes. Y'all plan for it. It's going to happen. Oh man, that's funny. Hey, listen, if you're watching and you have some crazy unexpected expenses that people maybe should be thinking about, let us know. Drop them in the comments. It's good to kind of have your eye on the radar, what could potentially go wrong, right? Gosh, there's so many things. We talked about cleaning. Let's hit on that. I think a lot of people forget about having to even clean their place. So are you going to pay for someone to come in, right? What does that look like usually?
It depends on the city that you're living in, but it's usually several $100s for a very thorough move out clean, depending on where you're stationed. And we've honestly had to do it the last couple times because when we were stationed in Germany, all of our household goods had already been packed up, and my landlady had a very, very high standard of cleanliness. So I, I said, well, then you find me, someone that cleans the way you like. And, I ended up paying to have it done. And then the thing that we just had with my husband with his surgery and so many things going on, we paid somebody to have it done. So that was, another couple $100s there. And then that also brings me to thinking about the things like the cleaning supplies. There's a lot of times things that you can't ship in your household goods and you just have to get rid of and then acquire again on the other side. So that's another cost, all your cleanings, things and your and with the food,
Oh,
your
gosh.
condiments and all of
Yep.
that. That's another, and I know that they do pay you a dislocation allowance, and that's supposed to help you account for that. But we all know that does not cover
It
everything.
doesn't, and that's assuming that's what you're using it for too. I know I've heard of people like splurging, like, oh, let's go to Disney on the way and stuff. It's like, just make sure you're not spending into like a pot that's already spoken for, right?
Exactly. Yes.
That's probably a big
Something.
one. Okay, so we brought up a lot of like problems. I feel like we need to probably circle this around and come up with some solutions because we do have tons of tips for you guys for how to prep for a financially responsible PCS. I think that's a good way to put it. I do want to take just a quick second and talk about our sponsor, Boldly. So, Lila, I'm going to give you a break for a second. Okay, you guys. So, I wanted to make sure that you were aware that this series is being sponsored by and supported by our friends at Boldly. They are as mentioned earlier, a W-2 subscription staffing agency that is actively recruiting and values and cherishes military spouse talent. So if you are looking to maybe explore remote opportunities, either full-time, and some positions I think can evolve into being part-time versus full-time, you can check out boldly.com/milsojobs. That's MILSO-jobs for more information. They're looking for folks with around 7 years or more of experience in fields like virtual assisting, project management, paralegals, all sorts of fun stuff. So be sure to check them out. And you can also check out a previous episode that we did with some of their team members. They're awesome. You'll love them as much as I do. So, okay. And that's actually gonna help you pay for the PCS, right? You've got your employment already figured out. So, all right, let's talk about what some of the things we can do well in advance. Let's start backwards. Like, let's be super responsible. I'm planning for my PCS maybe next year after. What are some things that I need to start or that I can start doing to be creating that buffer for myself and for our family?
Well, I always like to recommend that people have a spending plan, which I mean is a nice word for budget. Budget is kind of a dirty word like diet, but I mean, really a spending plan is just you having control over how you spend your money. So in a spending plan, you would typically set aside an amount each month. Like, let's say you knew you wanted to set aside $2,000 for your PCS, since that's, what, according to the statistics, is about how much people end up spending out of pocket. So you would just divide that up, by the number of months until your move, and maybe you set aside in an account, a separate savings account, a set amount of money for your move.
I'm dropping that note into the comments so we can have that.
Right. So you definitely want to set it aside in a separate account, because as a financial counselor in my past job, when I was, actually counseling service members, one thing I would see is they would always tell me that they were saving money, but they were saving it in their checking account.
It's all just together.
And that is like, yeah, it's just all together, and it's all too tempting to treat it all as, one thing, or to make, anything as an emergency, like, oh, there's an emergency sale on shoes or whatever.
I mean, so Angela's watching. She says she has a savings account for Disney savings alone. I believe that.
And I mean, there are some apps now. I don't recommend anyone, over the other, but there are actually some apps that will round up your, every time you spend, they'll round it up and you can put it into something. I have a friend who does that for Disney, but you could easily do it for PCSing.
Sure.
And my friend who has it for Disney told me that, she's a person who's not a saver at all. And that, by just doing it that way, so it was kind of invisible to her automatic, saving, then she saved a couple $1,000s.
Wow.
And ended up going to Disney.
Just a change jar. It just accumulates. Yeah, you don't realize.
Right. So it's kind of invisible to you. It's rounded up. It's, out of sight, out of mind. So that's the best way to save.
And it's already spoken for too. I like that concept of like paying yourself first. Like, go ahead, like set it up as an automatic thing. go ahead and set that money aside somewhere. Would you recommend that being part of your traditional like emergency fund, or are you saying like have an emergency fund and then also kind of like a PCS fund?
It depends on, how you want to do it. But I have always found that spending plans are so like personalized that it's hard to make generalizations, because some people have categories that are very important to them, but
True.
would not, like, a lot of people like gaming, online gaming, or and I'm not a shoe person, actually, even though I made that joke. They like shoes, or they like, so everyone has their own priorities. So that's why it's important to make your own personal spending plan. Certainly, if you knew, an emergency fund really should be for emergencies. So if you knew ahead of time that you were going to have these certain expenses, like maybe shipping your car or shipping your pet, then you probably would want to have a specific, category for that, if you knew that specifically. To me personally, an emergency fund is more like for those things like the flat tire, the having unexpectedly to fly your husband down to pick up his car that he couldn't drive, or
It's definitely not.
a plane ticket home, for an emergency. But whatever works, really. For you. And I think a great thing about this being PCS season, but it's also tax season, I think this is another way you can save, is by taking part of your tax return and going ahead and earmarking that. It's not, it's not really a bonus, first of all, because generally if you're getting a tax return, it's because you've overpaid a bit and given Uncle Sam a little bit of a loan there. But it's a great time to kickstart your savings. If you haven't, like maybe you're moving this summer and not next summer. So what do you do to kind of give yourself, a little bit of a step ahead? Then you could just take part of and set aside part of your return.
Yeah, for sure. I think a lot of people get excited about the return and want to go spend it on something fun. But then you're going to find yourself in a situation where you needed it. You're like,
right. Well, maybe set aside some of it for fun.
I never fun. Yeah.
I never recommend that people, just like, it's like back to the diet thing. It's like telling people to only eat, eat grapefruit and, drink apple cider vinegar, and that's all you're going to have. You're not going to be able to sustain that. So.
Exactly. So Angela says a good tip is to name your accounts. So one account for PCS expenses, one for travel, one for bills. I love that. I actually do that personally. I have almost like a fund, a bills, like expenses, and they're actually on separate cards, like debit cards. I have different accounts. It's almost like I didn't want to do cash, like the Dave Ramsey cash envelopes thing. I could never like fathom having cash because it's 2020. But I did that with bank accounts.
That's
like
great.
4 different checking accounts at one point because I was like, okay, well, groceries here, whatever.
Yeah, and that is a great tip. And with the online banks now, they allow you to have accounts and sub-accounts. So that's a great way to do it. And it makes it more personalized, and it's easier to visualize your goals when you have them actually named out.
Yeah. Okay. So what if I'm starting to get in panic mode and I'm hearing you speak and I'm PCSing soon and I do not have $2,000 saved up? Let's help those folks out. So what can we be doing like right now? And then maybe some ways of saving money during the PCS that could be helpful.
Yeah, I think that one of the biggest tips I could give is to go see every installation has somebody who is a financial counselor, and they are a great resource. They may be called something different, whether you're Army or Air Force, or I know, the Army Community Services has someone on staff. Air Force has the Airmen and Family Readiness Center, but there's something across every service who is someone who is a financial counselor who will, for free, help you set up a spending plan, be a great resource, and tell you about all the local resources, because there may be local resources to where you are living, and they will just get you set on the right track. So that would be the first tip I would give. And if you don't know where this person, is for your branch of service, Military One Source is another great resource, and they have financial, a different set of financial counselors, but they also can tell you where on your installation your local financial counselor would be.
Yeah, I love that. Actually, I had no idea how many free services like that were available, and the financial counseling is such a big one, and especially someone that understands the unique dynamics of military finances, right? Like all the allowances and the tax things and
Yes.
all of that stuff. It's really cool.
And they are a great resource, and I think too many people just, they're a great proactive resource. You can go to them beforehand, and they can set you up for success. And people on, civilians in the outside, civilian world would pay several $100s an hour to have this kind of help that we can get for free as military families.
Oh, this is great. So Julie, hey Julie. Julie says, I think evaluating what you can sell that you might not need at your new duty station could help you generate some cash fast. You might not need a surfboard anymore, or maybe you can sell your snow gear. That's a fantastic tip. So kind of doing an inventory, do the yard sale if you have time, Facebook marketplace sales,
Right.
Get rid of some stuff that maybe you'll never be stationed in Alaska again, and you don't need all of the snowshoes and stuff. I don't know.
Also, you're reducing your household weight, which some people, are very close to their the weight limit. So that helps you in many ways. And it's, it just makes moving easier when you've downsized. And we definitely did that when we moved back from overseas. We had so many German, voltage appliances and everything. And we basically made back everything we had spent on them, because there were more, there were people coming in that wanted our stuff.
Yeah, and check the local Facebook groups too. Like, y'all know, like there's always like, hey, I'm looking for, or hey, I'm selling. Like there's always like almost like a trade-off of resources and things and supplies as you're coming and going, because you're gonna have to, maybe you're leaving Alaska going to Hawaii, somebody leaving Hawaii going to Alaska, y'all could just kind of swap all your stuff out. Right? It takes a little bit of preparation. But as with everything else, but y'all, the thing is that we're really good at this. Like once you kind of get into the groove and you know what to expect, you now know how to prepare. So just try to do as much of that as you can beforehand, instead of waiting to the last minute and getting like slapped with unexpected everything, expenses, travel hiccups, plan hiccups. Stuff happens, life happens, right? So,
yes.
Oh man. I was trying to think. There was one more that you mentioned flights. So like there was one more that I was thinking about. So like a lot of times people like to check out their homes before let's say you're renting a home, you can't get there. You want to see the house like firsthand to keep you from making a bad financial move by either investing in buying a house or signing a lease on a property that you haven't seen. So you would think it counterintuitive to pay someone to go and do those things for you. But if you start to counterbalance that with what you would save in having to pay for childcare, time off work, a trip, maybe flights, whatever, mileage, all that stuff, paying a professional service provider like our scouts versus doing all of that on your own, can really balance out in the end. So again, being prepared ahead of time and gathering as much information as you can with the resources available to you can save you money in the end. So even though it's maybe not a free resource, that could be said for a lot of things. If it's not a free resource, you still have to kind of balance that with what you might be spending if you're in a pinch or in a bad position. Can you think of any other resources to that effect, Lila?
I agree with what you were saying. We did that ourselves moving up to the DC area. Actually, we used a Millie Scout, and we also used,
Yay! Oh my God, that's a perfect plug. Thank you, girl.
We also used a friend that we had in the area, but you can only ask so many favors.
Right.
And only, politely ask for your friends to check out, this many houses. But I was going to say, like, the research really helped us. And your site does have a lot of information about duty stations. So by having really researched it well beforehand, we were able to really narrow down where we wanted to live and where we wanted to be. So it helped us not waste time looking for things that were not really in our area of interest.
Right.
And because we had actually originally planned to do a trip up to DC to look for properties, but it's such a dynamic market, and it's the same in South Florida that you may go up, you may go ahead of time and it won't be what you saw ahead of time won't be available by the time you
for
get up
sure.
there. So it's like yeah.
For sure. Yeah, we actually just had a great testimonial from Jen. Jen, hey, I don't know if you're watching or not, but she was trying to get a place across the country, like all the way on the opposite coast. And it was one of those markets where stuff goes so fast. Like you got to either like yes or no. There's no, hey, hold it for me for a week. Let me get out there. Or let me see if my friend can come look. No, she wanted eyes on it. She was able to hire a scout like the next day, like get out there and sign for it, got the house. Awesome. Otherwise, what I fear is that a lot of times maybe we find ourselves in positions where, oh, I'll sign it and not having looked at it, or having like someone there to look at it for you. Maybe it's a bad situation. I mean, y'all, there's scams out there too. Like, be wary of that kind of stuff.
Yes, definitely.
Have some sort of trusted something on it, right?
Yes.
Like,
yes.
Especially when it comes to financial decisions, like make sure that you have some sort of voice. I don't know where from, I don't care. Make sure that it's someone you trust, that you are relying on.
I agree.
Yeah. Oh, that's so cool. I'm so excited. I did not know that coming into this conversation. So yay. I didn't pay her to say that, guys. That's awesome. Okay. Do you have, since we're talking about the DC area, let's jump in real quick and just touch on life in DC. What do you think was the biggest adjustment for you coming from, I guess you came from one big city to another, but what do you wish you had known about moving to the DC area before arriving and kind of having to acclimate on your own?
I guess the thing, and I mean, I did sort of know it, is that you have to have multiple commuting options because, and luckily we had the area we moved to, the neighborhood, Springfield, does have multiple commuting options, but that's one thing you don't think about. Where we moved from in South Florida didn't have any public transportation really, but the DC area has lots of different modes of public transportation, and it's best if you can have multiple ways of getting somewhere.
Yeah, and I love how accessible that is too. Like there are even neighborhoods there are buses that come through each individual neighborhood. So when you're even when you're looking at houses, you can get down to this micro level of, oh, there's a bus stop. So let's say you didn't ship a second car from wherever you just came from, or like any of those options, you still have different ways of commuting and getting around. And that's a financial decision too, because you're looking at getting like metro passes, or how far out do you want to live? All of those sort of things impact your like quality of life and your finances. So there's a lot to learn. There's a learning curve for DC.
And again, my research paid off because my husband was tempted to try to live in closer, which would have been above our BAH. But by doing my research, I knew, like you said, that the neighborhoods that are sometimes a little further out, we actually have both options. We have an express bus about 2 miles from us and a neighborhood bus. And the metro is a little bit further, but my husband can actually get there quicker than if he lived closer and was taking a non-express bus option. So it's kind of those quirks, but yeah, he didn't believe me, but I said, I've done my research.
I went to Millie. I saw the graphics. I saw the commute cards.
I had, been in all the Facebook groups and done all the research, and he had to agree that living where we live is the best, commuter / schools for the kids, because that's always another important concern. Option.
Yeah. Oh, that just warms my heart. I'm so happy to hear all of that. You guys, we'll drop a link to the DC area base guides in the comments so you can check that out and see all of the information. There's a lot of like really high level stuff, but then we also kind of break down what the commutes can and would look like depending on where your service member is stationed and what time of day you're traveling, right? Are you reverse commuting? There's a ton to work through, but we have awesome resources for you, so check those out. Okay, do you have any hidden gems that took you a minute to uncover, and you wish you had known from the second you stepped foot in the DC area that you can share?
Well, there's a lot of things that are discounted for the military here. And I wasn't really used to that in South Florida or in Germany, really. So I found out that the Kennedy Center and a lot of other theaters have military tickets that are like a super, super good price, sometimes half price or less. So that is just something that I kind of found out about through like a fluke, and I'm so glad I found out about it, closer to the beginning, but I didn't know it before we got here. So that was one thing that really made me happy to learn, because going to the theater in South Florida was really expensive, and we never did it actually. So
Right.
we've already been to, I think, 2 plays, and we have another one coming up. So that was,
Wow.
yeah.
Oh, that's so cool. Yeah, there's so much to do up there, and y'all, it is so military friendly. I know it seems overwhelming when you first are thinking and trying to wrap your head around a PCS to that area, just because there is so much to consider. But if you make those decisions early, kind of knock all that out of the way, then you've got time once you get there to just really explore and take full advantage of everything that they have to offer.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, hey Rebecca. Rebecca says all the Smithsonian museums and zoo are free for everyone. Yes, y'all.
There's tons of
Yes.
free, yeah. There's you could go to a different museum every week
Honestly.
here and not get through them all.
I
And there's
know.
also yeah, in the outskirts of, not just in DC proper, there's a lot of other museums like at Quantico and everywhere else.
Mm-hmm.
So there's just, yeah. I mean, my kids don't always love me for dragging them to all these cultural events,
They'll appreciate it when they get a little older.
but yeah, and I also, there's also like once in a lifetime type experiences. Like we were able to go to the mall and see for the moon landing, the anniversary, they turned the Washington Monument into a rocket, and they had it projected
What?
like blasting off, and it was amazing.
That's
It was like, look,
cool. Oh,
yeah,
that's
it's
so
like a once in a lifetime thing. So I would
yeah.
definitely encourage people to try to get out and explore whatever duty station you're at, because
Right.
that was something that I saw people when we were stationed in Germany. You're trying so hard to save and just kind of get by, and you're not taking advantage of all the things that are near you. So if you can get out and see stuff at your duty station, you should.
It makes all the difference, honestly. Like it truly does. So, yes, I agree with all of that. Y'all take advantage of as many resources that you have available, all the stuff that we talked about today, to make sure that you are being financially responsible and understanding that you're going to encounter some expenses. Yep, some of them
Yeah.
are reimbursable. So, figure out what is and what isn't. Keep those receipts. Tip number 1: keep all the receipts because you want to be able to have those to turn in, and then also just try to provide yourself a little bit of cushion for things that pop up unexpectedly, so that you're not in a sticky situation. Okay, tell everyone where they can find out more specifically for military saves, and then maybe any other resources you wanted to let them know about.
Yeah, so if you go to militarysaves.org, that is our website, and we have something called the Military Saves Pledge, which is actually the very beginning of the spending plan that I was talking about earlier, because basically we ask you to set a goal, whether it's saving for a PCS or saving for retirement or saving for education or whatever it is you're saving for. We have you set that goal because we know that people who actually set out an explicit goal are twice as likely to achieve it. So that's what we do for you. We kind of help you achieve your goal through inspiration and motivation. We have text messaging that you can sign up for. And so that's one resource. And we also have we have a blog, and we have other, resources and tools listed on our website. And another thing that I would like to point out is, if at any point during your PCS that you feel like you're overwhelmed or you're in some financial difficulty, I would like to encourage people to go to their installation financial counselors first, or some of the service aid societies like Army Emergency Relief or Air Force Aid, before they turn to a payday lender or a signature loan or any kind of loan product, because there's a lot of help out there. And, I certainly don't like to see people getting into debt, high interest debt,
Right.
when there are resources.
Yeah, I really feel like the moral of the story is try not to get to the point of desperation. Like, reach out,
Right.
ask for help each step along the way. Try to shake like the stigma and the shame that we all know is associated with money. It just is. You got to help. You got to get help as early as possible. So,
Right.
doing things smartly from the get go, and then also not making desperate decisions, I think are huge.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Lila, thank you so much for joining me today. This was so fun. And thank you to
Thanks for
everyone
having
who
me.
watched militarysaves.org. Go check it out. We'll have them tagged. I think we do in the comments somewhere. We want to make sure that you guys are making really smart decisions and being as prepared as possible to open up so much more opportunity for you at your new duty station and throughout your entire PCS process. Okay. Thanks so much, Lila.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
All right, everyone, that's going to do it for today. Thank you so much for joining me and hanging out and dropping your tips and your comments. That always invigorates our conversation, and we really appreciate it. Tune in next week. We are going to be chatting about school transitions and how to best advocate for your kids. So you want to catch that. You don't want to miss it. You want to catch it. We're going to do an evening show next week. So hopefully we can catch a different crowd maybe in the evening. So be sure to put that on your calendar, jot it down in your events, and you can head over to our Facebook page for more information and dates and times for all of our upcoming Baseside Chats. Once again, thank you to our sponsor, boldly.com, for supporting military spouses and military families who are in the midst of relocating. Okay, you guys, thanks so much for joining me. See you next week.